co-chairs in this room.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, and Senator Gerard, Co-Chair, Madam Speaker, Senate President. For the record, I'm Oregon State Representative Greg Smith. I have the distinct pleasure of representing District 57 in Eastern Oregon, Umatilla County, Morrow County, Gillum County, Sherman County, and Representative Huffman, the very, very best parts of Wasco County. It's great to be with you today. I'm in my 9th term in the Oregon legislature. For the most part, that's all serving on Ways and Means. And I currently serve as the House Republican Budget Chair. I'm pleased to be here today and to be part of this conversation. Following the good senator, this group of representatives and senators came up with a few additional permanent ongoing actions to curb long-term growth in our state budget. One of those includes requiring legislative review of state agency debt collection performance and approval of agency write-off of debt. Right now, your Ways and Means Subcommittee on General Government is undertaking this conversation. The good representative from the Central Oregon Coast is leading this conversation, and I anticipate in the coming weeks we're going to have additional ideas for you to consider on this. But we believe that there's additional savings to be had by reviewing our debt collection practices. An additional item is reviewing the Lottery Commission's administrative costs and the transfer rate to determine if more funds could be transferred for public purposes. As background, I'd share with you legislative fiscal shared with our committee that voters passed 2 ballot measures in 1984 that established a state lottery and the State Lottery Commission. One was a constitutional amendment and another was implementing statutory language. Currently, the legislature does not approve the State Lottery Commission budget. It does not set State Lottery Commission expenditures in the budget and does not limit the number of employees the commission hires. We believe that this is something that needs to be reviewed. Legislative Council has shared with us that there's an opportunity for us to perhaps review this and bring concepts forward that would allow for additional dollars to be put into other uses. An additional idea that we would like to bring forward for consideration is reducing bonding costs, including paying for small projects with cash rather than borrowing, and looking at increasing the overall cost or reducing the overall cost of long-term debt. Let me just share with you very briefly, colleagues, and again, this is language provided by legislative fiscal to us. The 2017 Commission report from the State Debt Policy Advisory Commission identifies target debt capacity limits for the general fund to remain at or below 5% of the general fund, and lottery fund debt service remain at or below 25% of net unobligated lottery revenues. Currently, as of July 1st, 2017, we'll be at approximately 3.9% of general fund and 22% of net unobligated lottery revenues. And so based on that information, again, we've thought it was worthwhile for us to consider, rather than borrowing money on smaller projects, to actually cash fund those directly. And we thought $3 million was a good threshold. Second, we believe that we need to have additional conversation on deferred maintenance of capital improvement projects that we finance collectively. And third, we believe that as a method of preventing the accumulation of deferred maintenance, the legislature should establish a biennial target for actually funding deferred maintenance. Now, this might add additional expense on the front end, but we believe is a long-term approach to bending down the cost curve in our state budget, taking care of that deferred maintenance now, not letting it accumulate and having to take care of much larger problems in the future. In addition to that, we had 2 additional permanent ongoing actions to curb long-term growth. One is to look at reducing expenditures that just simply aren't needed any longer. And I would share with you that there's many good ideas out there. I think citizens around the state of Oregon, interest groups around the state of Oregon will be sharing with us many ways in which we might be able to just eliminate those functions that just simply don't need to occur any longer. And Madam Speaker, Mr. President, I think it's at one point in time we'll be asking you to have an additional conversation, perhaps to have a work group around that concept. And then finally, colleagues, we believe that there ought to be additional vigor in the vending contract process. Those folks who owe the state of Oregon money, perhaps they should be paying their debt back to the state of Oregon prior to entering into contractual agreements with the state. And those folks, we think there just needs to be additional vigor in how that process works out. I know Senator Johnson, who will be joining us here momentarily, has thoughts on that as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I think I'll turn for some questions.